Hey guys, Argent here with a reactionary review of Psychopaths. Now, someone had requested I do this, so whoever it was, I don't remember, I'm doing it. On the other hand, I was planning on doing it anyways because I'm watching it. I'm about 2/3 of the way through the first season, and it's really kind of a good concept to do a review of. I'm not really going to talk about the actual plot. It's a pretty general kind of you have kind of the voice of the viewer character, Akane, I think her name is. She's kind of like Sarah's Victoria or Robin or any number of other characters in similar futuristic dystopian crime shows. The plot's not bad. Basically, they're kind of like a group of investigators. I might talk a little bit about it, but I mainly kind of want to talk about the society. So the world of Psychopaths takes place in a near I guess in about a couple decades from now. I think it's the 270s or 280s in Japan. Society has been placed under the governance of the Sibyl system. The Sibyl system, which we find out in like the second season or something, I'll get to that in a second though. The Sibyl system is a supercomputer of sorts which controls all of Japan. The Sibyl system uses extremely advanced technology to build complete psychological profiles of everyone within the country. And everyone in the country carries around a psychopath, which is a idea of sorts that contains their criminal coefficients. The criminal coefficients are calculated using hundreds of thousands to millions of different, how should I say, factors, judging from body language, eye expression, past, mental state, actions, chemical processes, brain activity, etc. There's extremely advanced scanners on the streets, and I believe in people's homes, which constantly monitor their criminal coefficients. If you have a criminal coefficient under 100, which most people do, you're considered to be a non-criminal. There's no other restrictions really placed on you and your personal freedom, which we'll get into a second, by the Sibyl system. If you're over 100, you're considered a latent criminal, and a lot of jobs are denied to you. You're generally speaking sent for rehabilitation, put on some sort of medication, or otherwise restricted in your activities, or sent to get various kinds of treatment, I suppose, to try and lower your psychopaths back below the cutoff point. If you're between 100 to 300. If you're over 300, you're terminated on sight. Very few people are over 300. Generally speaking, in the show, people over 300 are mass murderers, sadistic torture murderers, etc. Like Paul Bernardo, Charles Manson. Those are the kind of guys who would be over 300, so they're not very common. But whenever they're picked up, the police tend to go and kill them. It's interesting to note that the police in this universe don't actually have the authority to kill people. They carry around dominators, which contain a portable version of the larger scanners. So when they point it at someone, they transfer the data into the Sibyl system, and it gives them the criminal coefficient for the person, and then the gun automatically responds. If they're under 100, the gun locks up and will not be fired. If they're in the mid-range, it turns into a stunner, so they can be stunned and brought in for treatment. And if it's over 300, it instantly kills by firing an expanding gas projectile, which causes the person to explode. So, that's kind of, so that's how crime is dealt with. The Sibyl system also uses its abilities to determine careers for people. The Sibyl system collects data over the course of a person's school career and I guess part-time jobs, etc. And everyone has to undergo a in-depth evaluation when they graduate. They are then presented with their scores. So they basically kind of try to match people up to a particular company, a job in the government, some other function in society, which they are best suited for based on their complete psychological profile, etc. Akane, the main character, was said that she received A levels in all 12 government bureaucracies, as well as A levels with 6 major corporations. So it's not just the public sector. So she could have taken a job at any of them. She was the only person, though, to receive an A level with the Department of Public Safety. So she chose to go there and work as a police officer. And I forget if they're called enforcers or detective, whatever. Kind of a federal agent, I suppose you could say, kind of like a special agent with the FBI. It's pretty far above what we normally see as policing. So people go through that. We also see that Sibyl makes more complicated judgments. Only certain musicians are licensed. The Sibyl system determines whether or not their music is a benefit to society. It judges art. It judges all sorts of things. Needless to say, the Sibyl system has brought a lot of order to Japan. Crime is essentially non-existent. The very few criminals there are dealt with by the police. Most of it is preventatively done with. We also have immense widespread prosperity, which was done by Sibyl developing Japan's industry and agriculture. They invented something, I think it's called super wheat or super oats, and a number of other extremely efficient genetically modified crops, which ensure that food in Japan has never been cheaper, more nutritious, or more widely available. The industry in Japan has also been modernized, etc. Sibyl more or less runs the country in a completely rational way. Everything is just done to improve living standards, to reduce threats to public safety, and to increase happiness. Because when people are happy, their crime coefficient goes down and their stress levels decrease. So everything about Sibyl involves trying to decrease people's stress levels to keep them below being latent criminals and to keep society functioning. Interestingly enough, Sibyl has also pursued policies of extreme isolation for Japan. Sibyl completely sealed the borders of Japan upon taking control, and Japan exists as an isolated state that does not allow foreigners to enter. This is because the system cannot handle foreigners, as they're just too different, and the constant people coming in and out is bad. It would create international incidents if a laden criminal from another country was arrested or shot, and that foreigners deemed to be active criminals are subject to the same consequences as natives. Sibyl also conducted extensive purges as soon as it came online, exiling social critics, political groups, many students, a lot of university teachers, and some farmers. Basically all the groups who would agitate against it. Thus, society is largely content with the Sibyl system. So the Sibyl system is broadly speaking liked by society. People acknowledge that it has done a great job in reducing crime, ensuring economic prosperity, and keeping Japan independent in the face of a globalized world. Now, there are a certain percentage of people in society, 1 in 2 million, who are called criminally asymptomatic. That is people that the system cannot read. Said people have a psychopath that they can adjust at will. One of whom is able to set his criminal coefficient to 0, and he's the main villain of Season 1. who wants to destroy the Sibyl system to bring back what he terms to be free will, and to allow people to make their own decisions and act from their soul, and to kind of end determinism. There have been attempts to expand Sibyl by also having it control all the cars in the country and all economic activity, but it's been unsuccessful so far and may be perhaps expanded at a later date. The Sibyl system itself turns out to be an organic computer in which criminally asymptomatic brains are added, and they work collectively to determine everything. They can also pilot robotic bodies and interact with the outside world. So what do I think about the Sibyl system? I actually think it's a pretty good idea. I think they're excessively harsh in enforcing it. I don't really think you should shoot people to kill them if they haven't committed any crime. I think having a psychopath over a criminal coefficient above 300 shouldn't be cause for being executed on the spot. I do think, though, I do agree with most of what the Sibyl system did. I think to ensure stability within society, you do need to end much of the opposition to the new order. You do have to conduct purges, because every government in history conducts purges. Most democracies conduct purges. It wouldn't be necessary to have multicultural education in schools, to imprison people who say politically incorrect things, to arrest neo-Nazis, to ban denial of the Holocaust, to restrict certain people from coming to your country, if it wasn't necessary to take certain steps like that to protect the new order. All new orders do it. It doesn't matter whether it's a democratic government, a liberal government, etc. It's really whether or not you do it in an efficient manner and whether or not you do it in a sadistic manner. If doing it in a sadistic manner is like what Hitler did, where you just kill absolutely everyone who's an undesirable. What kind of Pinochet did was he just selectively killed or exiled a couple thousand people who were the leadership of kind of the Marxist communist movement in Chile, and that was able to stabilize society by cutting off the heads of the Red Hydra. Sibyl seems to have done that. It doesn't seem to have done a mass purge. It didn't even kill the people. It just exiled them from the country. It also seems to be doing a good job as people enjoy a level of prosperity and living standards and leisure time that is completely unknown in previous generations. Modern Japan appears to be a post-demand society, and there's a relative lack of any type of social disorder, as the society is based around the maintenance and improvement of the Japanese people, to the point of controlling culture to a certain extent in order to ensure that society remains mentally healthy and morally healthy as well, which I also approve of. I actually don't have too much bad to say about the Sibyl system. The thing is, in a lot of ways, it's a lot less repressive than other forms of government, because while everything is monitored, it's monitored by an impartial system. The system may be looking at people, but it's not like it's a bunch of NSA bureaucrats who are reading through your emails. It's a computer that isn't interested in what you're doing in particular. It doesn't make moral judgments. It doesn't, in a certain sense, it doesn't like go into your house and say, "Oh, you're watching, I don't know, this kind of pornography or something. We're gonna arrest you," unless it's something that's grossly bad for society. By kind of removing the human element to it, they've removed a lot of the biases, a lot of the potential for abuse. The system is not shown really to be abusive. It's shown to be a bit cold, particularly to people who are having temporary panic attacks. But those things could probably be fixed. I also approve of it selecting jobs for people and trying to match them up to it. I think a lack of specialization, a lack of people really entering the fields that they're qualified for, and the lie that everybody can do everything has done immense mental and spiritual destruction to our society. And I think it's something we should look at changing. Probably something else I think the Sibyl system should do is maybe look at arranging marriages for people. Find people who are optimally going to be have a healthy relationship, are going to produce children, are going to maintain Japanese culture and Japanese society, and put it into action doing that as well, or at least give people the option of it. Find someone a perfect spouse, have them meet each other, and then let them decide. Um, I think that's all fairly good. I mean, I think freedom is to a large extent overrated. I think people believe that they want freedom because they think freedom will lead them to happiness and lead them to accomplish material prosperity or finding love or having peace and order. I think that's why people support freedom. I don't think that many people really long for it in and of itself. And in that sense, Sibyl has largely created a society where there is more personal freedom because there's much less bureaucracy. Things are automated. You don't have as many inspectors. People either are punished when they do something, and they seem to largely be left alone when they're not doing something, or they're not suspected of doing something pretty quickly, pretty soon. Um, so overall, I think Sibyl's a pretty good system. I would also probably institute. My ideology would be different. The state would still be Catholic, obviously, and I wouldn't obviously use it to force people to go to church or something like that. But I would probably make that change in society. Maybe still have a monarchy, have the Japanese emperor still play an important role in society, and maybe make society a bit more socially conservative than what is seen in the Psychopaths world. But overall, I approve of it. It's self perpetuism. It's efficiency and its order at the expense of freedom, but it's not arbitrary, cruel, or sadistic. It's just efficiently run government. So overall, I like it. I recommend watching the series. I think it's a good show. It covers a lot of interesting things. The characters are varied. The villain's kind of interesting. The main character's kind of cute. The rest of it's not particularly. It's okay. It's well done. It's just not. It's not like Code Geass or something like that, where I watch it and I go, "Wow, this is amazing," or Evangelion, where I'm like, "Wow, these are some of the best characters I've ever seen." So that's my review of Psychopaths. I hope you enjoyed it. This is Argent Templar signing out.